got Khabib and Poirier. And as incredible as these two resumes are of world champion versus world champion, I must tell you, I am not feeling the buzz from the MMA world that we're about to see two world champions go against each other. I'm not feeling the Mike Tyson versus Michael Spinks moment. I'm not feeling the Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior moment. It seems to be a written off conclusion that Khabib is going to take care of him. Now, let's just look a little bit closer, whether that turns out to be true or not. This is still a moment that we should go out there and enjoy, and there are some question marks. So first off, as a layman fan, whenever you're watching these fights, one guy kicks the other guy's butt. If one guy can kick 2 or 3 butts in front of you while you're at home watching on TV, you go, well, that guy's on a roll, put him in a championship fight. If a guy does what Khabib does and he whips 26 men in a row, might even be 27, he's beaten so many guys, and only loses 1 round along the way, you go, okay, he's invincible, nothing to see here. And I've just seen a lot of guys go through that. I saw Mike Tyson go through it until he didn't. I saw Roy Jones go through it until he didn't. I've seen Tiger Woods go through until he didn't. I've seen Serena Williams go through until she didn't. I will tell you this. Fighting, as fun as it can be to watch on television, is not as complicated as it appears. There's only 4 positions that you will ever find yourself in. You could be in the open, where you guys are not touching one another at all. You're standing in front of each other. Kickboxing rules, Queensberry rules. You could be clinched up. You could be on top, or you could be on bottom. But of those 4 positions I named, you will never find yourself anywhere aside from those 4 positions. So when you sit down with your coaches, the very first thing you will do, and this would be for Dustin Poirier, when he sits down with his coaches, who, by the way, happen to be the best coaches money can buy, they're going to identify, of those 4 positions that this fight could possibly go in, what are the ones that we don't want to be? Where is our weaknesses and where are his strengths? And of those 4, there's only 2 for Khabib. On top and clinched up against the fence. And this is very relevant because when people watch Khabib and they talk about how great his grappling is, and it is great. But he is also doing it from a position that other guys are failing in. Khabib is finding success pushing guys into fences. When guys push guys into fences with the defenses that can be done now and using that cage and hiding your legs and stopping a guy from dropping down and getting behind your knees and pulling you off, it is almost a stalemate, or you're just trying to rack something up in favor of the judge. You start playing the foot stop game, you start giving the knee game, you start looking for head position, and ultimately you're hoping as an athlete that the referee doesn't step in and break you guys because very little is going on. Khabib has found a way to pry you off the fence, to step behind, to drag your leg out, to get you down. Then when he gets on top, he's not just ground and pounding you. Khabib is pinning you, then pounding you. He has taken it to a new level. He is doing it better than anybody I have ever seen in practice or in competition. But there's still 4 positions the fight can be fought in, and Khabib is a master of 2. So if you're Poirier, there is a way to break this down. There is a way to understand this guy is likely, if history tells us anything, and I'm watching all of his fights because that's my job, he is likely to succeed in pushing me into the fence, in getting head position, in trying to trap my leg, stretch me out, and bring me down. But if I can keep my back off the fence, I can take that position away from Khabib completely. If I can circle, if I can just keep my back, if I can make the wrestling happen in the open as opposed to the fence, I don't have to worry about that at all. Oh, and by the way, as far as getting out off the bottom or having to use my jiu-jitsu and my grappling skills, if I never go down, I never have to worry about it. Now, easier said than done. I will concede for you. But when you start to break the sport down into its smallest dimensions and elements, it's not nearly as sophisticated, as complicated as it would appear when you're watching on TV. And whenever you see these big upsets, it's usually because one athlete found a way to take away the other athlete's greatest weapon. Not only does that help with scoring of the match, it can also frustrate and unravel the opponent. Allow me to give you an example. Khabib has had 2 hard nights in the sport. Most recently against Conor McGregor, where he lost the first round that he ever lost, where Conor stuffed a couple of his takedowns, made him work very hard for the ones that he got. Conor gave him a hard fight. Regardless of how that story has been rewritten, Conor gave Khabib a very hard fight and won a round. If you back up and you watch Khabib versus Al Iaquinta, Al was Khabib's hardest fight ever. It was so difficult that Khabib fans began to come out and make an excuse for why that fight was so close. And they got to a level of insanity that somebody of my sophistication would not even begin to respond to. They were saying things like, Khabib wanted Conor. And guys, I swear to goodness, I'm not making this up. You could go Google, this is a real thing. Khabib wanted Conor so bad that he knew if he destroyed Al, as he was capable of doing, that Conor would not accept the fight, and therefore Khabib let Al survive. Now, Khabib never said anything so insane and so disrespectful and so factually incorrect. He said, Al Iaquinta is the hardest fight I ever had. That guy is a great fighter. Khabib gave him his due, but people were there to offer an excuse. Look, there was no excuse. Khabib was a fantastic fighter, but he's a master of 2 dimensions. The fight takes place in 4, and Al was able to identify those and stay out of them largely. Largely. It wasn't an ultra-competitive fight. Khabib went out and took care of Al. I get it. I'm not rewriting it either. I get what happened. But to make believe that Khabib played down, that's not what happened. It just turns out that Al Iaquinta is amongst the best fighters in the world, and he went out and proved it against the very best fighter in the world. But if you are Dustin Poirier, you're not looking at the media out there. You're not looking at the lines that are saying you're a 3.5 to 1 dog and you've got no chance in this and it shouldn't even be happening. And, you got the jump over Max, but Max was a 145. You're not looking at any of that. You're looking at the sport for what it is. A contest that is contested in 4 elements, in 4 realms. This guy I'm taking on has a history of being dominant in 2 of those realms. If I can keep the fight in the other 2, either me on top or both of us right here in front of each other, that would be, at least historically, a little bit of untested water. And I don't come out to proclaim for you guys that when Khabib is put in that position, he's not going to answer the call. I'm just suggesting for you that to answer that call, he's going to have to show us something new that we haven't seen before, and that alone makes for something very exciting. As I sit here today and tell you that Khabib is a master of 2 realms, if I have to come back to you guys next week and tell you it turns out Khabib's a master of 3, well, that'll be fun. That will show us all something new that we haven't seen before. I can remember when Randy Couture went through this. He was the king of ground and pound, and he was going to drag you down and pin you in the fence and elbow you, and he was going to beat you up. But if he couldn't do that, then you were going to lose. So he ends up in there with Chuck Liddell. Chuck Liddell was a damn good wrestler, Division I scholarship athlete. A lot of people didn't know that because he talked about the Kempo and the I think he's got Kempo tattooed on his head, and he was doing so well in the mixed martial arts with the stand-up fighting. People didn't know. He not only wrestled his whole life, he wrestled at the Division I level successfully and was paid to do it. He was a damn good wrestler. In their first fight, Randy was having a hard time getting him down, so he went to Plan B, which we had never seen before, and he stood up with Chuck. A lot of it was clinch work, but he stood in the open, he grabbed him behind the collar, he dirty boxed him, but he whipped Chuck's ass in a way showing a skill that we never knew that he had. And other fighters have come along and done that as well. But it's always been something exciting and meaningful when it happens. And I will suggest for you, with the success of Poirier and the game planning of which he will have ahead of this fight, it is a good possibility that we see Khabib start to show some kind of assets in one of the other dimensions, which he largely hasn't done. I think that's fun. I think it's compelling. It's one of the things that has me most interested.